Hi, I'm Eric from Stinger Offroad. Jeep owners love to modify their Jeeps and add cool customizations to make them better. This Jeep owner has definitely modified his Jeep. We're going to continue to modify it today by adding a Stinger HEIGH10. It has a 10-inch HD screen, 4 camera inputs, Bluetooth, a built-in power amplifier, Android Auto, and CarPlay. Once we're done our installation, this Jeep's driving experience is going to be completely transformed. Before we start, let's take a look at what we'll need. The Stinger Wrangler JK installation kit includes HEIGH10 infotainment system, Wrangler JK dash kit, wiring harnesses, and dual USB port. We recommend having these tools handy to complete the install. A plastic pry tool, a ratchet with extension, 7mm socket, pick tool, Phillips screwdriver, crimpers, wire cutters, electrical tape, a dash snake, solder and soldering iron, butt connectors. We're going to start by removing this upper panel and this lower pocket that give us access to the 7mm bolts that hold the whole trim panel into place. So grab your plastic pry tool and remove the top panel carefully. Pry up on both sides at the back. Tilt it toward you and lift. Disconnect this factory module. Set that aside. Now using your pry tool, remove the lower pocket. With the lower pocket removed, grab your 7mm socket and ratchet or drill and remove these screws. With the 4 bolts removed, we can now remove the main plastic dash panel. If your Jeep's been off-road anywhere near as much as this Jeep's been off-road, you may find some souvenirs like dirt when you remove this panel. Grab your plastic pry tool and carefully pull the dash panel toward you, releasing the clips as you work your way down. Once you get halfway down, you may start from the bottom and work your way back up. We're just about ready to remove the factory radio. At this point, we would normally remove this section of the dash completely if this had automatic climate controls. Because this Jeep has manual climate controls, we're just going to lean the dash out of the way and remove the radio. That's all the access we need to be able to slide the HEIGH10 in anyway. So grab your 7mm socket and wrench or drill and remove the factory radio. Now with the factory radio removed, let's head back over to the workbench. We'll wire up the HEIGH10 and we'll get it ready for installation. Now we're ready to make the connections between the HEIGH10 harness and the plug-and-play harness that fits your Jeep. Your kit comes with 2 plug-in harnesses. One will match your Jeep's connector. Simply set the other harness aside for now. When making the wiring connections between your harnesses, there's several methods you can use. You can solder the wires and insulate with heat shrink or electrical tape, or you can make your connections with butt connectors. I'll demonstrate both methods now. Starting with the HEIGH10 harness, there are 2 wires that have connectors that are not needed for this installation. So we're going to remove those connectors now. Starting with the constant power wire, I'm going to show the soldering method. Strip the insulation on the wire. Place heat shrink tubing over the wire. Strip the other wire that you're going to connect. Then twist your wires together. Now solder your wiring connection and then heat the heat shrink tubing to insulate. And that's the heat shrink and soldering method. Now I'll show you the butt connector method. And that's your crimping method. Whichever method you choose, repeat this process for the rest of your wires in your harnesses. Now we're ready to take the HEIGH10 brain, the mounting bracket, and dash kit and assemble everything so that we can put it in our Jeep. Starting with the mounting bracket and this metal L bracket, align these 2 slots with the 2 grooves, and then install your 2 screws. With this assembled together, you can slide the HEIGH10 brain inside this gap bracket, aligning these 2 screw holes and installing 2 screws there. Taking the plastic dash kits, keeping the square hole at the bottom and the oval hole at the top, we're going to now attach these to our HEIGH10 assembly. Basically line this up and put in the screws here and here. Now we have the 3 screws installed, and the front of the HEIGH10 bracket lines up with the front of the dash kit. Repeat the process on the other side. Now we've assembled our HEIGH10 brain and our dash kit, and this is ready to go back into the Jeep, where we're going to make all of the wiring connections here on the back of the HEIGH10. Now we're ready to attach the HEIGH10 mounting bracket to the back of the screen. This bracket is adjustable for tilt or straight up and down, and also has a lot of mounting positions. You can use whatever orientation and configuration works best for you. We found in our Jeep, mounting the bracket at the bottom of the screen raises the HEIGH10 screen up, and it works really well in this particular vehicle. So grab your 4 screws and install the bracket on the back of the screen. The mounting bracket does give you the ability to mount either straight up and down or tilted. So once you select your orientation, go ahead and install the locking screw into the proper position. Now with the bracket securely attached to the back of the screen, we're done with this piece. We can set it aside and go back to the Jeep. Now we're going to remove one of the 2 factory Jeep power outlets so that we can install our dual USB port. This has the 2 USB cables that will connect into the back of the HEIGH10 for Android Auto, CarPlay, and playback from a thumb drive. We're going to start by disconnecting the harness on the back of the power outlet, then physically remove the outlet from the dash panel. Now with the factory power outlet removed, we can route the dual USB cable through the dash. Because we see a lot of off-road time with this Jeep, we're going to install the optional waterproof cover. Now we can route the 2 USB cables through the dash and then install the 2 locking nuts that will secure the USB port into the dash. Now we're going to follow the factory routing. Now we're going to twist on the locking nuts to secure the USB ports into place. Now we're ready to go ahead and install our GPS antenna. This lets the HEIGH10 know where we are. Normally what you would do is mount this up on the roll bar and run along the interior panels down the A-pillar. Since this particular Jeep doesn't have very many panels here, we're still going to mount on the roll bar, but we're going to follow this channel here and route across this bar down to the A-pillar. Our GPS antenna does come with a small metal plate with some adhesive on it. We're going to peel the backing off of that. This is going to give us a good ground plane for our antenna to magnetize to. Stick that down. Place our GPS antenna. We're going to route our cable down through this channel. Normally your wires would hide behind factory panels, but since this Jeep just has an exterior roll cage, we're going to go ahead and zip these to existing wiring. Before we finish routing the GPS antenna through the dash to where the HEIGH10 will sit, we're going to go ahead and install the optional microphone. This is optional. The HEIGH10 has a built-in microphone into the screen, but you can also install the extended microphone if you wish. It comes with 3 different mounting brackets. Choose the one that works best for you if you're installing the optional mic. We're using the double-sided tape option to stick right to the CB radio. We're going to route the cable up along the GPS antenna and then route them through the dash together. Now with the 2 cables at the top of the driver's side A-pillar, we're ready to route them through the dash to where the HEIGH10 will sit. Normally in your Jeep, you're gonna have some trim panels that you can pop off here and sneak through the dash. Because our Jeep's been heavily modified and has this steel roll cage, I'm gonna go down under the roll cage and back up through the dash. Find whatever routing works best for you. Now that we have our GPS antenna and our microphone extension cable routed across the dash, we're ready to snake it up through the dash to where the height is going to sit. So take your dash snake, work down by the air vent, Now the last thing we need to do before we can put the HEIGH10 in the dash is to go ahead and set the radio select switch on the side of our radio module to the 4th position. That's going to control our HEIGH10 for your vehicle if it has steering wheel controls. Once that's set to 4, we can now plug in our vehicle connectors. I'll take the vehicle connection harness. With this plug and play harness, plugs right into the side of the radio module. On the other side of the module, we have a small 4-pin port. That's for this harness. If your Jeep's equipped with steering wheel controls, this is what's going to retain that functionality to the HEIGH10. We have a harness that has 2 inputs. One's labeled SWI for steering wheel interface. This plugs into there. This plugs into the back of the HEIGH10. The main vehicle connector will plug into the factory Jeep harness. The other end of this harness now plugs into the back of the HEIGH10. This is our camera input harness. We're going to plug that into the HEIGH10. Our LVDS connection and power cables. This is the input for the external optional microphone that we installed. Plug your microphone cable into here, and this plugs into the back of the HEIGH10 as well. Connect the antenna adapter, GPS antenna, and our 2 USB ports. Before we slide the HEIGH10 brain into the dash, we're going to make sure that the 2 LVDS cables are hanging out through the front. These need to connect to the 10-inch display so that we can control the HEIGH10. The antenna adapter plugs into the antenna lead on the back of the HEIGH10. With all of our harnesses connected to our Jeep and our HEIGH10, we're ready to take the HEIGH10 brain and install it into the dash. We're just going to temporarily put it in and attach the screen to make sure that everything works. Once we verify all the functionality, we'll remove the screen and finish installing the dash. Now we're going to use a few zip ties to clean up our wiring a bit before we tuck everything back into the dash. Be sure to route your power and LVDS cables through the dash kit so they connect to the screen. We're going to put in 2 of the bolts just to hold the radio in while we do the test run. Connect the LVDS and power connections, and then clip the screen onto the mounting bracket. Now we can turn the Jeep on and make sure that everything works. We'll verify that we have video from our reverse camera, if you have one installed. Looks like everything's working there. Now that we know the HEIGH10's working, we're going to go ahead and pull the screen off, finish installing the dash, and complete our installation. With the dash panel back in place, now we can reinstall the 4 7mm screws that secure this into the dash. Now we can take the lower storage pocket, put the bottom end in first, and snap in the top. And the final piece of the dash reassembly is to reinstall this top panel. Remember to connect the connector to the factory module, and then slide it into place. Now connect the LVDS and power cables to the HEIGH10 screen and attach it to the mounting bracket. Don't forget to take off the factory screen protector. And now with our HEIGH10 installed, our Jeep has been completely transformed. It's got this awesome 10-inch HD screen, it's got Bluetooth, Android Auto, CarPlay, a built-in power amplifier, 4 camera inputs, and lots more cool tech. We hope you enjoyed watching this install video. Thanks for tuning in.